This is the People's Water Board Coalition Water Wednesday podcast for September 29th, 2021.
Welcome, everyone, to the People's Water Board Water Wednesdays webcast, where we talk to water warriors from all over the state, sometimes throughout the nation, and we talk about water struggles that people are experiencing. I'm here with my co-hosts, two co-hosts, Nicole Hill. Hi, Nicole. I think you're on mute. And
hi, everyone.
And Rosalind Walker. Hi, Rosalind.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning. We are joined today with Russ Ballant, who is a water warrior in his own right.
How you doing today,
long
Russ?
time.
Doing great, Rosalind. Glad to be with you.
Good.
A long time water warrior and lifelong activist for water. Also a proud Detroit City retiree. He's a president of We Care About Van Dyke 7 Mile Association. And he is also a participant in the lawsuit against drainage fees with DWSD. We've got lots to talk about. And we're just going to jump right into it. Russ, when you and I were talking about this interview and the things that we were talking about, you mentioned to me the two swords of dismantling Detroit. Yeah. And it was an interesting way to explain it. Do you want to share it with everybody?
Sure. I went on Wayne County Treasurer's website, which any of us can do, of course, and they have a listing of all the notices of foreclosure going back, I think, to 2011 or maybe even longer. And I looked at each one of them and did a count and based on that, an estimation of how many foreclosures have been done in Detroit in the last 8 years. So I added from 2014 to 2021. And again, it's an average because you can't, they're want ad size things. And I was stunned. The city has 382,000 parcels. And I would have never guessed the number of foreclosures or recommendations for foreclosure that came from City of Detroit to the treasurer to initiate the foreclosure process. And the county treasurers by law initiate the foreclosure process. By the first thing they do is they post a notice, a legal notice. And at that time, people have a chance to pay the taxes or deal with a payment plan or something. But the recommendation to begin the process of foreclosure includes that step, but it came from the city. And the city forwarded to the county treasurer over the last 8 years, 261,000.
My gosh.
I can't even say it. 261,000 foreclosure notices. Now, I've had some people say, not in response to this specific data, but in the past, well, people are supposed to pay their property taxes. I said, yeah, but people are supposed to be able to have job opportunities. And there's a whole lot of things that that our generation had growing up that our generation isn't providing to the next generation.
That's right.
But the second more, less argumentative point is that President Obama gave an estimated $300 million to the city of Detroit for the hardest hit program to help people pay their property taxes. This was done to help the families who were being challenged based, due to their low income status. It was also a neighborhood stabilization to prevent more blight creation. And it was a benefit to the whole city. And then once they did that, then the libraries and schools also got their property taxes. So everybody, it was a win-win-win all the way around for everybody. But as you know, the mayor and the city, with the blessing of the city council, I think without even a strong objection from city council, spent the money on demolition. Now,
so unfair.
Foreclosure is the major source of blight in the city. And, if you vacate a home is out for foreclosure and it's out on the auction, that means the house is empty. And then, the ritual is known. the house gets vandalized, the furnace and the, you know, the most
Pipes, things.
pipes, all the metal gets stripped out and so forth. And then nobody wants the house, or very few people want the house. And then the neighbors have to deal with another vacant house. The money that the city's now paying for demolition, around $20,000 is the number it's often cited. They could have saved 8 to 10 houses from going into foreclosure with the hardest hit funds. So when people say, well, we need a demolition, well, the city already used general funds for $50 million worth of demolition every year.
Mm.
That could have continued. And they still could have used some of the hardest hit funds, maybe in some emergency cases or needed cases for demolition. But they would have kept tens of thousands of homes intact in this city. And they knew what they were doing by taking
It was
that money.
intentional.
You can't infer anything else except intentionality.
Yeah.
And
Now,
that is to uproot the people that's there and move on with new contractors and new developers to take over.
That's right. And, you know, the demolition process started when three contractors were selected, and non-African-American, and
Hamrick being one of them.
They discussed the prices and what the arrangements were, not all of which is public. And they started putting them to work, and the city council accepted that. In other words, there was no posting, no bidding, and it became, you know, relationship contracting, which mutually benefits the parties.
Same thing that happened with water shutoffs. Am I right? I mean, we hired Hamrick, a demolition company.
Yep, for
the mayor's buddy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. That's still, there we go again.
To shut water off.
Right. But you hire outside industries or contractors to do the work that the city could have been doing. And that money that you're spending on hiring those people to go and turn it off, you could have used that money to help people.
$5 million would go a long way.
It's a lot, right?
That's right.
And for a lot of residents. So now you look at it like all those residents that lost their water, they basically lost their homes to foreclosures. And then they was, like we've been talking about, prior to them rolling the water bill over on the taxes. Man.
Yep. And you know, the other part of that, in addition to the foreclosures, the other sword is the water shutoffs themselves. The Bridge Magazine, reports the number up to the time that he was told to stop by the governor. They report the number as 144,000 shutoffs. Again, you have 250,000 residential properties. Now, some of those shutoffs were commercial properties, probably not a lot of them, but there were some. But the numbers are staggering. And when you put together the data, I mean, people immediately came together and said, you're threatening public health. This is about public safety as well. And then, as you know, Henry Ford Hospital did the study that proved the 151 block where one shutoff occurs. I had 12 shutoffs on my block alone in one day by Hamrick. But one shutoff on one block increases the risk of communicable disease by 151%. I don't even imagine what it is for 10 shutoffs. But what was the city's response to that? We have business deals with you, Henry Ford Hospital, and if you don't bury that study, those business deals go down the drain. And the study got buried.
Yeah, the health director wouldn't even talk about it. He would not even come out and talk about it. And then ran for governor, had the nerve.
Right.
He did. The unmitigated nerve. Wouldn't even talk about the study. Completely buried it.
I'm sorry.
That's not even the irony.
Al Sayed.
Oh, yeah.
The irony is that he not only ran for governor, but he used the water shutoffs as part of his platform. Water affordability, pushing for supposed water affordability, which actually turned out to be assistance. But what I wanted to say is that I noticed that you spoke of the number of 261,000 homes. And ironically, if you think about it, the city says that a lot of the issues that are occurring is due to the decline in population. And ironically, that's somewhere around, when you couple that with the 144 or 150,000 water shutoffs, that couples the right around the number that took us below the the 1 million mark. If you take that, that's what brought us down to this, like the 680,000 residents that we have today.
Mhm. Well,
But
now
I don't think
sorry.
they've even realized that there are residents and community leaders out here intellectual enough to put those numbers together and couple it with the numbers that are left, and realize that that was the issue that led up to us having that population decrease that we had.
Yes. Well, you know, and that is the whole point, Nicole, not the whole point, but an essential point, that the depopulation of the city, now they're saying it went down 90,000 in the last decade. And it was over 700,000 when the current administration came to power. And you'll remember back then he said, hold me accountable, mark my words, judge me on the people returning to the city and building the population back up. He said that in his first campaign in 2013. But all these things have deliberate and intentional effect. When we had the 12 shutoffs on my block, I lost 2 neighbors. They left town because the properties weren't in their names, and if they paid the water bill off, the house still, you know, wasn't in their name. They just booked and they left the city, you know, and you know, everybody makes their own decision for complicated reasons, but you know, but part of the problem with not doing the foreclosures and trying to protect people is you created a lot of vacant homes, and people living next door got tired of the city, you know, not addressing that problem, not keeping the people in the homes, and other people left that weren't directly affected by the foreclosures because they were sick of the blight. If you go on Tacoma, on the blocks east of west of Gratiot, almost every home for blocks is empty and falling apart, and it's been like that. Oh, shut up. Oh, shut up. So
yeah, it's been like that over there. That's District 3 and District 4. I live in that area.
Yeah, that's 3.
You know, and it's really bad. And if you go down State Fair, you will look like, wow, and you see a lot of these homes just ran over and just terrible, and they get water off, you know, on the door, on the wood or whatever, on the wood, because there's no more doors. You have land that's just open land where they came in, just tore down all the houses because they probably never had no more, they probably had no water. So then when you have a house with no water, how can you live in a house with no water?
Exactly. It's horrendous.
And then once they leave the home, then you have people come in there and they scrap, and when they get through taking away everything, it's nothing left. So and it's very sad that the city will sit back and watch these things happen and let these things happen to human beings.
Yeah, and frankly, you know, when the governor said stop the water shutoffs in the context of COVID in 2020, the mayor was angry about it and he said publicly, I'm opposed to this policy of barring the shutoffs. He wanted to continue the shutoffs. And it's worth noting too, in addition to what Henry Ford Hospital did, George Gaines, former public health director, published a study in January of 2018 showing the rise in waterborne diseases as a result of the shutoffs. And those were significant numbers. So the mayor, the water department, the city had ample data showing that the continuation of water shutoffs was causing real harm to public health. And they did not curtail or modify the problem. They attacked the messengers instead. So, come up to 2020 when she's trying to stop it? Because remember, all the advice in early COVID was everybody needs to be continually washing their hands, right? Keep them clean, don't make contact, physical contact is spreading COVID. And so why wouldn't you want to help stop COVID? Remember, Detroit's numbers were higher than other places.
That's right.
You have to factor in the water shutoffs as a major contributing factor to the higher COVID rates in Detroit than outside of Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's what I want to say, and it's going to sound a little critical to the water justice community, but where is the accountability coming? Where's the public demands and the public education and the demands that somebody who would do this and cause harm to the public health and possibly fatal harm?
That's right.
To people, and nobody's saying anything about it in the context of a period of accountability called an election cycle.
That's the part that
Frustrating to me.
it's absolutely frustrating. And the trauma that people are enduring because of it right now is it's this it's almost like a global that's a global epidemic in and of itself, what people have went through in the last few years. The mayor he was angry about it, and he didn't even respond until the end of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, Elena Harada posted on her Facebook page that there were people in Corktown with Black Lives Matter signs on their door and vote for Duggan signs in their yard. And I just, it almost is like we have to put out a campaign of Duggan actually hates Black people. And here's how this is it. This is the things that he's done that shows that he absolutely has no will to make sure that people have water, homes. They don't want to live in close proximity of the poor. He's made it very, very clear. And I'm really, really concerned about what's going to happen when the moratorium is over. If we thought 2014 looked bad on water shutoffs, imagine after sitting for 2 years in the middle of a pandemic and not being able to pay your water bill. So it's astronomical. And then we're going to go through I really predict it's going to be way worse than it ever was before.
Yes.
At the end of it.
And you think about it like this, when they said that the coronavirus came out in 2020, actually it came out before 2020. People were dying in 2019 from coronavirus.
That's right.
And they didn't let us know. I know for a fact that my son and his wife and kids had it really bad in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it was the
that's
same
right.
thing,
That's
right. So with the water being shut off, this could have had water being shut off from ever since 2012, 2013. You had a major water shutoffs from homes all over, just like you said, blocks and blocks, 10 and 12 homes at a time. They were already setting up diseases.
Mm-hmm.
They were shutting off 3,000 homes a day. And imagine
and
after
if you
mass
shut off
tax
3,000
foreclosures,
homes in a day,
there's 10 people in a house.
right.
3,000 homes a day. That's what Hammer got.
And then when the coronavirus came in and no one could work and they shut it down, now you have all these people that was supposed to be on a payment plan. If you can pay $25, pay that. Where all the arrears gonna go?
No, that's the thing. That's the thing.
It's gonna go to the residents.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing I want to say about the mayor. Sometimes I don't even like to talk about him because he's not for us. Whatever he does is getting money in his pocket.
In his friends' pockets too.
And then I wonder how you can go from medical to the water department. That's just like you had Gary Brown. He was in law, then he went to water. Come on.
They're all bedfellows. They all
y'all just keeping this thing in a circle, in a hoops with y'all, and then you have a lot of different, everything is wrong. Just look at it like that to me, because you have all this money that you can tear down homes or you can evict people. Why you can't use this money to help people? Mm-hmm. And most of these people then worked all of their lives and paid
Right.
taxes.
That's what corruption is, because this is a situation where if you just think back, this has all been leading up to bringing the reverse white migration back to the city and eliminating people of color who they think are uh, considered undesirable or dispensable, as I always say. Because if you even look at what they did to the pensioners,
Yeah.
what they're doing to the schools, because
Right.
they're saying, Duggan made a statement saying all the schools had lead in them. And my question to him directly was, every school sits in the middle of a neighborhood. So if the water in the school system is poisoned with lead, so are those homes surrounding that school. And his response was, no, it's just the schools, which ironically was the same response he gave when I was trying to confront him about the hepatitis A pandemic, dead center in the midst of the massive water shutoff campaign. And his response was, oh, that's Macomb County.
Mm-hmm. Right. We got we've had a publicly clear challenge that has made it challenges that have made it clear that there's intentional plan to dismantle the power in the population and the capacity of Detroit going back over 20 years. You know, I mean, it was starkly clear with the takeover of our schools by John Engler in 1999. Okay. And, you know, at that time, John Engler put Mike Duggan over the facility spending for supposedly upgrading our schools. And, you know, those were horror stories in the media during that period of time about the abuses that were going on. And, you know, we had a $93 million surplus in our school district, and we had rising test scores. We were in the middle of the state with all the challenges that existed in Detroit. We were in the middle of the state, which means half of the white school districts in the state of Michigan were doing worse than Detroit public schools academically. Okay. None of which were addressed by anybody. And so as soon they take it over, and within a matter of a few years, it's $250 million in debt. So this dismantling process has been there, and the evidence has been clear through the undermining of our school district, bringing in Dave Bing, who took his orders from Rick Snyder to start, get rid of our public lighting system, get rid of general services that help seniors repair their homes, get rid of, and he went through that consent agreement about trying to give a whole pages of agenda items to Rick Snyder, who was telling him what to do. Don't negotiate savings with the unions. We don't want savings because then we want a pretext for bankruptcy, and then they go through the bankruptcy. And then we get an administration that comes in and gives control of our water department to the suburbs, working with Rick Snyder. Give control of 150 years of billions of dollars of assets that we built and still own, and give control away. So now we can't even have a regional system that we own where we can manage the flood issues. And this is an important point. I almost forgot to bring this up. They're talking now about spending several $billions to address the flood damage, flood control issues in the city. The flood control issues are because most of our system is overwhelmed by flow from outside our city coming in. And I've argued everywhere that if you put sluice gates on 8 Mile and over on the west edge of the city and stopped all the flow from the suburbs from coming into Detroit, we would never have a flood again and in a basement.
Wow.
So they need to be sharing the cost. In fact, I think all the costs, and not by giving money to Detroit, because they'll be all outraged about that. They need to build their own retention basins of a huge capacity. Their ability, Oakland Macomb own a joint interceptor that serves 700,000 people, and it's coming right into my neighborhood. Okay. And, our folks further downstream get flooded. And what are they doing? Now, they did some dumping into Lake St. Clair after they did some treatment and dumping. They need to have more capacity to do that and not even bring it into our system. And that's where the money should be getting spent. From their system overwhelming ours, they need to make the changes and not put further burdens on Detroit. Now, they say they're going to use the lease money that GLEWA gives to Detroit, the 50 million, to finance the bonds to do all this sort of thing. That's still supposed to be our money to be used to replace lead lines or, you know, other service capacities. So they're going to take other services away in order to fund this.
No matter what, the cost always falls
that
on
was supposed
us
to be-
for this
right.
entire thing,
Right.
always.
So
And they get a break.
Right. We're still subsidizing the suburbs. Just like our drainage fee subsidizes the suburbs, right? The federal judge said 83% of the stormwater management costs of the regional system has to be borne by Detroit. So that's why we're paying these huge drainage fees compared to any place else in the region.
And that just is so absurd considering the suburbs already pay wholesale for their water costs, as well as the fact that, you know, Detroit gets blamed for everything. I've literally had conversations where people have said, well, my bill goes up and I live in Farmington, but it's because Detroiters don't pay their bill. And I have to school them and let them know, like, do you
We
realize
foot the
your
whole
municipality,
bill.
your municipality purchases water at a wholesale rate of pennies on the dollar, and then your municipality decides they're going to mark it up before passing it on to you as a constituent, as a customer, and that's where they make their huge profit. And to speak about them not wanting to foot the bill for costs of infrastructure, including building basins that will benefit the infrastructure completely, is that they act like children about it. I've literally been on calls where they're so immature that they don't realize they still have public residents on the line, and they're supposed to go into a private meeting. And I caught them talking, and there were representatives from Macomb and Oakland County, and they're arguing back and forth with Gary Brown about why they should not have to pay infrastructure costs. And it literally sounds like two children bickering. It's like, well, you need to help us. You help make the mess. You need to help clean it up. And then the suburbs are like, but it's not our infrastructure. It's Detroit water and sewerage, not Macomb water and sewerage, you know, and this is literally how they're talking. And
Yeah.
I swear they sound like two bickering children.
And Nicole, this all goes back to the mayor pushing Oakland and Macomb County, who were reluctant, believe it or not, reluctant to take over our system because they thought they were going to be obligated for more debt. And he and Rick Snyder pressed them. And when they met with Brooks Patterson, of all people, they said, look, you will not experience any new costs if you do this. They incentivized them to take over our water system over. And now we have no control over the system that's overwhelming our neighborhoods.
But isn't that the story of Detroit?
But let me say this to the water warriors of the world. Where's the accountability? Where are people raising the profile of these issues and accountability? One, your shutoffs. Two, the public health crisis related to shutoffs. Three, surrendering control of our system so we have no capacity to address our flood issues. Where are the signs? Where's the demonstrations? Where's the banners challenging? This is the period of accountability, and everybody's being silent on it.
It's ironic you speak about the floods, because I've talked to several residents in the community who were affected by the floods. And I would say out of 10 people that I spoke to, 9 of them, when they put in their case to FEMA, was denied. But pretty much everyone that I know that lives in the near suburbs, such as Ferndale or Royal Oak, were immediately approved the minute they hit accept on the application.
Wow.
Wow. And I mean, it's so blatant. It's so obvious. The systematic racism entwined in the whole thing.
Yes.
Russ, thank you for bringing that up, because I always feel like that. Like there are so many things that we haven't been challenging, especially through COVID, when we're a movement city and we're already kind of organized to be able to do that. And it's been hard for me to understand why we're not in the streets and shutting things down over this as well. And if we don't do it like immediately, we're going to have Duggan again.
Something needs, if it can be walked door to door, like as I was telling you before our meeting started, I just put out 1,000 leaflets this weekend. I don't have a problem leafleting, and there's a lot of people, maybe some people who were victims of foreclosures and shutoffs, and people that we've had contact with in the past over these issues. Will you help us tell people your story?
Right.
And everybody's story. And we got to start flooding the neighborhoods and let them know what the reality and the truth is. And this is in the whole trajectory of dismantling our city. And if you ask in District 3, where I live in Northeast Detroit, where's the counterpoint? What I see is property tax money, drainage fee money, overtaxation, and tax captures, looting our neighborhoods, feeding downtown, midtown, Corktown. And I can't see anything that shows where our taxes are being used to benefit our neighborhoods. When you're taking money from tax capturing money from the libraries and the schools, and you're giving it to business people downtown to start, some business enterprise of some sort downtown. And we got 15 of our 21 libraries closed. Mm-hmm. We've got schools that until this recent federal money came in, they were having trouble even selling bonds, because they said so much of your money is being taken by the mayor, your millage money. We don't think you can pay back the bonds. So they couldn't get the bonds to do the upgrades for all the damage emergency managers had done to our school buildings. Mm. See, from all the neglect. So they were going to try and get those buildings fixed and make them retract. I mean, there were serious functioning issues in the buildings, including the lead lines. And so it was harming the school district. It's harming our libraries. They tax capture money from the supplemental funds used for special needs children. We got it, that goes to Wayne Risa. It's a countywide millage. They take, in 2017, they take 1.4. It's got to be over $2 million a year from that fund for special needs children's education. Where's the damn outrage?
Yeah.
It should be pouring outrage.
Thank you.
Particularly from the parents of those children.
Yes.
Particularly from the parents of those children.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also want to thank you for bringing up Rick Snyder, because people don't realize how widespread his damage went. When they think of Rick Snyder, they immediately focus on the damage and the horror that he caused Flint residents.
And he got away
He's done that to most major cities with predominantly people of color as residents.
Yes.
As we see how his impact was in the city of Detroit.
That's right.
And he got away with murder.
Yeah, he did. And I'm sorry. Go ahead. We're going to wrap it up in a second.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. I won't say that the Legionnaire's disease was part of it, but there was intentionality by the creation of the Carignan Water Authority and the role of the state in the in the movement of the Carignan Water Authority to dismantle water services. And the whole reason for shutoff wasn't saving money. It was so they could sell bonds for the Carignan Water Authority and raise money to dismantle the Detroit system before they took it over by the suburbs. And all the consequences that they knew that they were poisoning people, but this was about their plans to build a Carignan Authority, get the mineral rights of the water lines and a whole package there, and the people be damned. And that's the real story of Flint. It's not a mistaken judgment. It wasn't an error of thinking. It wasn't a lack of knowledge.
Mm-mm.
was
No, it was
intentionality.
intentional. Yes.
Intentional.
Yes. It's after 12:30 and I honestly, this is such an important conversation that we might invite you back if that's okay, Russ.
You know where I live.
Also, let this be
We
the
don't
call,
have more
right?
to say.
Russ gave us our marching orders,
Gave
right?
us the power.
He gave us our marching orders. Get out there and organize. We have to tell people
Yes.
what's happening to us. We have to tell our story. We need to, people who have had their water shut off or went through the mass foreclosure process, come to us. We'll help you tell your story. But also it's time for us to organize. We only get what we're organized to take.
Yep.
So we're going to wrap it up with that, my friends.
Okay.
Thank you very much for joining us, Russ.
Sure.
And thank you so much, Roz and Nicole, for every week having these really, really important conversations.
You are so welcome.
I think this is the time for us to tell our
Duty.
story. Yes, this is the time for us to tell our story. Until next Wednesday, please take care of each other, love each other, look out for each other, call your elders, and yeah, hopefully you have water and all the things that you need. Take care. Toodaloo.
Thank
Bye.
you all for the honor of